Well, ladies and gentlemen, at 7:04, I call this meeting of the General Government and Public Safety Committee to order. Take an attendance. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance. If you stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to comments from citizens. Hearing none, close that portion of the agenda. A presentation from Mid-Missouri Solid Waste Management District.
That would be me.
All right.
With no presentation. Just briefly, I was asked by our lovely board member, Mr. Mayor Tim Durkee, to come and talk to you guys about the Mid-Missouri Solid Waste Management District. Feel a little apprehensive considering there is a former district manager in this room. I won't say any names, Matt Carline. And I always call Matt if I'm having a struggle with DNR because he loves to be my strong arm guy. So I know he has a wealth of information. So hopefully I can make it sound really good and I can talk about me afterwards. Basically, a Mid-Missouri Solid Waste Management District, real short, it's about 20 years old. They were started as a subset of DNR in order to help promote recycling projects to eliminate a lot of waste that goes in our landfills. Long breath of saying that, our landfills are being overrun completely by waste. The United States is one of the largest waste producers in the world, especially with food waste has become a big, huge thing. We probably get rid of about 40% of the food that we eat. It's really ridiculous. He's raising his hand.
I'd just like to introduce this as Deanna Trask.
Oh, I didn't say that?
Sorry.
Starting right off, man. I was ready to go. Deanna Trask is my name. I am the manager for the Missouri Solid Waste Management District. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, I thank you for letting me come. Like I said, I know you guys have business, so I'm not going to keep you too long. Getting back to that, we just produce a lot of waste. So what the state of Missouri decided to do was to take some of that money that was received from landfills and to distribute it into a grant funding program. And this is what we are responsible for. There's 20 districts within the state. We are considered Region H, which is what Boone County and the city of Centralia is within. And we provide grant funding to any project that is trying to get started to produce recycling, compost, any kind of waste reduction program. We also have funding set aside for any kind of events that we put on to help and aid in that. A couple weeks ago, we had one here in the city of Centralia. It was a tire and e-waste collection. Tim was out loading tires, and we have pictures. That's why I wanted to show you. He was up there throwing tires in the tractor trailer. It was awesome. But we, from the city of Centralia and Mexico, kind of brought some of theirs down, which we told them we would have tractor trailers here. You guys got rid of about 100 tons, of tires. We had 6 53-foot tractor trailers. We always have about 2 or 3 at an event. We ended up having to call them back with 3 more to fill it up. Loaded up at Forest Chevrolet, the old parking lot there. And then with e-waste, it was about 30 tons, I think. So it was a nice turnout. That's really good, to be honest with you. Usually, we'll get about 15 to 20, 30 tons of tires and maybe about 8 to 10 tons of e-waste. Gives you kind of an idea of what the city did with the help of the city of Mexico. But that's what we try to do. We try to give an outlet for those items because people have a tendency to burn them, which is really bad. Dump them in the ditch, which causes groundwater contamination. And the same with electronic waste, all that kind of leaching stuff. There's copper and mercury and all of those things go into the groundwater, causing a major issue environmentally. So this was kind of a way for the state of Missouri to help eliminate that and provide those funds. And so that's kind of what we do. We always have 3 grant rounds. This year we're starting mid-August. I brought booklets or late August. I bought booklets for you guys to just kind of flip through if you want to see what the grounds look like. We usually give out about $100,000, depending on the project. This last time we just finished getting all of our funding for 2014, and I think, if my math is correct, we have granted about $450,000 in grants. A lot of small grants. We had some really large grants. We have a couple composter places that are doing that needed trucks. Habitat for Humanity needed trucks to help with their recycling and distributing of the goods. The city of Columbia has used us. The city of Mexico has used. So it's an opportunity for your citizens to say, hey, we want to do this project. We have no way of finding funding. We are kind of the person that would help with that.
They're kind of like the playgrounds, the playground equipment.
Yes, tire mulch.
Tire
Thank you. Tire mulching. Tipton actually just had one. Vandalia did it as well, where they got recycling playground. Their equipment was made out of recycled equipment. And the tiles, the rubber tiles, and that's what the tires are used for. Thank you for going back to that. When we pick up those tires, they are ground to become playground mulch. And a lot of the places around here, Holt Summit uses them, Vandalia is one that uses them. And Sturgeon has used them, and that's where you can see where those tires go, and it's actually a better way to manage them than obviously dumping them.
One other thing that was pretty significant about our tire collection here in the e-waste was there was no charge to the citizens for dropping their tires off.
And we tried to do that. We found out that so a lot of times we'll have what is considered carryover grants that either closed and they had money left over. So once it got to a certain amount of money, we said, you know, we need to do something with this. So we made it free. The first time we did it was in the city of Columbia. It was called the University Collection. The University of Missouri asked, could we help them figure out something to do with their students and their electronic waste. It was like, sure, we'd be glad to do that. So we offered it free, and we had actually a household hazardous waste collection, so people could bring all their paint and oil and all that stuff, and then the e-waste and then the tires. And U-Haul's was actually larger than theirs. We only had about 80 tons of tires from the university, and I think the e-waste might have been a little bit more, about 40 tons of e-waste. And then HHW, which was crazy, that was nuts, but it worked and it helped, and I think the citizens appreciate it for them to say, I want to do something. This is what we always say: if I have to work hard at recycling, they ain't gonna recycle. I mean, honestly, if they have, you know, it's easy for me to put my trash out to the curb and say, okay, it's gone, I don't have to worry about it, and that's kind of how people want to think about recycling. Knowing that I'm doing something good, but I don't have to really work hard at it. And a lot of times with recycled things, you do have to pay for, because there is a charge to getting rid of televisions, you know, and tires and things. So we made it free, and I think that's why we saw such a huge turnout. We appreciated it. Kind of got a little backlash from DNR because we did it, but we'll handle it. It's no big deal. And it was awesome. Just
Coming at you from both sides.
Yeah, no. So it's a great opportunity. We try to enlighten as much of our community as possible to let them know that we offer those services. We're doing another one in Howard County in September. So just in case there's citizens that might have something and don't mind traveling, we try to at least get 2 or 3 counties within my 8-region county to have an event. And then, of course, like I said, the grants and stuff are throughout the year. It's usually about September, January, and March are usually kind of the time frames. And again, my booklets will let you know that. But that's what we do. That's what we're here for. Any questions? Yes.
2 questions, actually. You mentioned what happens to the tires. Where does the e-waste go?
The e-waste, we have 2 vendors here within our region. One is in Jefferson City. MRC is their name. The other one is Midmo Recycling.
They just kind of dismantle them.
MRC is one of the few places that I know of in the state of Missouri that they actually do several different steps. If it can be repaired, they actually repair and sell and receive those profits back into there to keep their operation going. So they'll do a repair. They do a breakdown and sell parts to other vendors within the state of Missouri. If some appliance shop or something needs a part, they do that, and that's another way for them to maintain their costs. And then, of course, the other part, which is that dismantling and then selling them to like your Best Buys or, you know, those kind of places that are getting rid of the electronic waste. They make sure that they don't do anything that's going to be illegal. So they try their best not to ship out of the country. A lot of places they do go to is maybe Illinois, and Indiana, I think, is another location that they may ship their products to. But a lot of it they try to keep it within the state of Missouri. Minmo is the only one that actually, they just dismantle everything and then they'll, you know, get rid of the parts that way.
And then my second question, I was listening to the news today. Columbia had a spoiled food collection, something or other. Was that your project?
No.
Oh. I thought it was kind of interesting idea.
They did.
Kind of sounds like the composting.
Well, that would have to do with the, all the stuff where people lost power and, they.
Oh, okay, that comes.
And they were using their trash trucks, I presume it all went there on landfill.
I'm assuming so.
Yes, the city of Columbia has their own composting site where they pick up food waste and they dump it there. And then they also have the bioreactor, which uses a lot of the yard waste. So they have a way of it's all kind of a closed circle, if you will, group there within the city.
How often do you come to this area?
We come where people ask. We did a collection in Boone County 2 years ago. It was probably right when I started, and we had a couple of residents within the Centralia area saying, "Can you guys come North Columbia?" And so we try to do each kind of rotating. Since I have 8 counties, I try to do 2 or 3 counties every other year. So that's why we were in the Centralia area this year, because we did Boone County and Columbia a couple of years ago. So it's kind of about every 2.5 years that we try to rotate.
I do want to say that the Gulf Forest Chevrolet parking lot
It
was
worked.
prime location.
It worked.
Yeah, it would. Had plenty of room.
And plenty of tires.
Plenty of tires.
Yeah, but it was a perfect location.
And I'd like to shout out to, thank Forest Chevrolet for allowing us to.
Most definitely, and they were very gracious because, again, we had it on a Saturday and we couldn't come back until Monday. And they came back with 2 tractor tires on that Monday, tractor trailers on that Monday, and they still didn't fill it, so they had to come back Tuesday, and they were fine with it staying there. So it was very cool. We were very appreciative. We let them know that.
Well, say, I'm amazed, we had to take out my personal household stuff down to Columbia because we were going to be gone the weekend you were here. And it looked like there's scans of people down at Reactor Field, for Centralia and Mexico to be able to top that turnout.
Yeah,
That's
it was.
amazing.
We were quite surprised, and to be honest with you, we actually had a not small, but it was a decent sized pile that was still left at the university that we brought up here because we knew we were going to have tractor trailers. And so that kind of is mixed in there, but no, I won't tell you that. But being honest, full disclosure here, but yes, you did. And we were quite surprised. We figured, it's going to be a small collection. It's not going to be that busy. And we had to open about 8:45 to 9. We usually try to stay at 9, but sometimes we can't if we get a line. And it was steady. Horse tractor trailers, it was just steady, So, we like it. I like it to be steady. It keeps the day going. But it's like, didn't you all do this last week? So, yeah, it was good though. It was good.
Keep all that stuff out of the landfill.
Yes. I will leave 2 books for you, 2 or 3 books for you guys, just to kind of see what the whole grant process is, because it's a lot of information. And just call if you need me. Thank you again.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Have a safe trip back.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Moving on to public safety. City prosecutor.
You here?
No, I'll try and give her a call this week to see if she'll come up for the board. I know she's got her own city board meeting.
Police Department, I received a message that we're going to be here tonight. Activity reports in your packet. Any questions or comments?
Looks like we increased a little bit from June of 13 till June of 14. From 75 to 96.
Yes. Pets at Anchorfest, we discussed this the last meeting. Any thoughts on that?
They're working on it.
Well, yeah, Matt's gonna sign it, but he hasn't come back to me with any conclusions.
No, they don't turn away service.
Well, we can't do that.
Can't do that.
No.
I will try to engage him on this and a couple other things to put into the report next week.
Thanks.
Any other, so not. Fire Department, activity report, it's in your packet.
I'm going to convey to the firefighters, they did an awesome job with the fireworks.
I appreciate it.
It was very impressive. Did you have anything to do with the music that they were playing that night?
No, I don't do music.
Oh, you didn't hear it?
You can barely hear it when it started up, and that's the end of that.
This
Well, I
is
don't-
separate from the pool?
Huh? This is separate from the pool.
Okay, then it would
Yeah.
have been Earl
Okay.
Dennis' project.
I allowed to do comments and about the patriotic music that they were playing during the fireworks show, and about one or two that weren't too happy.
It did run people out of the shelter where it was playing.
What's that?
The music was loud enough to ran people out of the
Yeah.
shelter where it was playing. But you had to have it loud for it to go very far.
Right. But it was a nice.
Were those the ones that
it was a-
complained, or the ones that were in trouble?
I would imagine, but I don't know. They didn't come to me and complain, so,
Is that the first time we had music playing?
Yeah.
I think so.
yeah.
In recent history.
Huh?
At least in recent history, yeah.
Well, if the ones that want to complain haven't come down by me, they won't hear a thing.
They put on a suit and help.
You know, we're supposed to stay a certain distance back from the.
Correct. All right.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
No other fire department.
I am looking into buying a extrication little tool that we budgeted for, but
Missouri budget.
getting pictures of it is getting to be quite a deal.
For what tool, sir?
Extrication tool, concrete tool. I kind of like to see what we're thinking about buying instead of just.
Okay. Emergency management, hazard mitigating plan.
You have a letter in your packet?
You want to discuss it to you too?
Let me get done with notes.
Yeah.
We participated, as the letter indicates, in helping the district develop, I think, county by county plans. It's in the binder about like that. They need to periodically review and update them. They want our participation, and going in, they would like a resolution saying we will participate. Since the last time we did it was relatively painless and really only required resolution of adoption once it came back, and most of the work will be done by the city administrator, and didn't take me much time either. They tend to be fairly extensive, so the kind of things that would affect Centralia are limited. I mean, we only have a small amount of floodplain in the city and is easily controlled, and we shouldn't have new problems on it. The dams we have are innocuous and are not the kind that cause flood disasters like Jamestown. So we're only mentioned in passing. They dwell on shelters and grass fires and forest fires and a lot of other stuff that frankly and fortunately do not apply to Centralia. So we will not occupy a great place within any plan that looks at all like the last one, but staff does recommend that you instruct me to prepare a resolution for next board meeting so that we can assure them that we will participate.
Okay. Do we need a motion or something like that?
With her.
Right, and they're also, I think you already said before, but they're looking for the resolution and the victim, I guess, or Nina participant.
You know
I-
his
I
name's
assume-
going on
I
that.
assume,
Yes,
in keeping with custom, I assume that would be me.
Okay.
It's not a big deal.
No.
And you can crib most of what you need out of the last one.
Okay, I just want to make sure they know.
Yeah.
So,
I'll make a motion that we do this.
So,
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to protective inspection.
really nothing to report. We're doing okay, but we don't have significant number of new permits this year, this month. So we're treading water at 18 units. There is at least one business that may talk about expansion, and I will address that at the end of the meeting. It's the last topic down there.
Okay.
And I'm not sure there's much of anything else to worry about.
Moving on to general government and finance, economic development.
Mr. Martinez is here to give a credit report.
I'm Gabe Martinez, representative of Creddy, and just,
Well,
would you like me to?
well, in particular, since you show up on the video.
Okay. I'm Gabe Martinez, actually president of Creddy, and we've recently reorganized, which I think our secretary treasurer Lori Myers mentioned last month at your meeting. We've also since then filled our board, which is first time in a little while, and I'd like to share them. Of course, we've got our VP, Mr. Wilkins, and then we've got, like I said, Lori Myers is our secretary treasurer. We combined her positions. We also have Mr. Don Gorman, who is our chamber representative, and we've got Matt Smith, who's appointed by the school district to represent them, and I think he'll be a great asset on the board. We've also got Damon Reynolds and Emily Curtis. So we're really excited about that. Like I said, it's been a while since we've had a full board, so I think we've got a lot of new blood, a lot of good ideas, and the first thing that we're kind of shooting for that we put on the back burner was our fundraiser. We, of course, had a director who's recently resigned, and he was kind of spearheading that, but we had to take it back until we were back in full force with the board. So we're looking for, hopefully, we're still continuing with the state of the city kind of idea, kind of a presentation of what's going on in Centralia with different organizations. We're shooting for no specific date yet, but hopefully January of next year. Another thing was we have received the city's funds, and we've posited that, so thank you very much. We can't thank you enough for that. Hopefully that'll keep us going. I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular else, anything else in the works, but I don't think so, unless there's any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Want to say something about that?
Sure, yeah.
Last Saturday, the Friends of the Battlefield hosted a fundraising barbecue and concert out at the battlefield itself. Preliminary numbers are that we hosted 200 guests probably, and about 35 volunteers. The band's probably another 15 or 20 people there with the band, so we figured we served 250 people. I think all in all, it went very well. Had an auction at one of the intermissions. No, actually before the music started, it was well attended. Going to have a little debriefing meeting here next week, or this week sometime, and kind of make some notes about what was good, what was bad. So anybody who was in attendance that had any, I know I have a suggestion out of Mr. Ward there that we're going to certainly write that down, and hopefully make this an annual event as a funding stream for the battlefield. So this is the first third annual. First two got rained on, and this year we did put up a big tent.
I just like to comment that I really appreciated the fact that it didn't rain this time.
Yeah. It did make it a little better, didn't it?
I think you found the right, plan behind how to do it correctly.
Well, we changed the date and we put up a tent, so.
The tent's what done it.
What's that?
The tent's what done it.
Yeah, we broke the curse of Johnston or something.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Anything else for economic development? Park board. Cemetery board.
Report that I'm aware of, sir. Oh, I take that back. On Wednesday, Ethan will get together with Phyllis and work on his efforts to get the older sections of the cemetery mapping to tie into the more modern sections that are carefully surveyed. And he reports relative success in the maps will have tie-ins between each plat and the database that we need, and both the old and the new section will be available on a single program for Phyllis to manipulate. The old records might not tie in exactly with pinpoints on GIS if you were just looking at on the basis of the old maps. So we'll do some more work on that, and Wednesday morning he will tie it in by phone and give us an overview and fill us some tutorial. And at that time, just incidentally, if you can send your intern over.
He's out of town this week.
So
Of
no.
course it is.
Sorry.
Okay, well, that'll be a shorter meeting and he'll appreciate that, and we'll have to work at finding some alternative time when your intern and Ethan and Matt can get together. I gather the layers are in shape where that somebody can go through a tutorial and work out how to map fire reports and police reports to the layers.
Okay.
I did notice that there looks like there's a big old tree that partially come down in one of the older sections.
I would.
I think I drove by there yesterday or the day before. I don't know, maybe some
on
The
street
big
side
walnut
brush
tree.
cleanup from the last
Big
windstorm.
walnut tree.
Big walnut tree, leaning towards Clarence's house, kind of close to the Northfield parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Well, speaking of trees, tree board.
I did talk to John Cockett, and he is checking with Jeff Breedlove to see if he wants to be reappointed to the tree board next week. So hopefully I'll have a response back from him by then.
Okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
Pardon me, sir, does the tree board's responsibility extend to the trees in the park system?
I don't know anything about
Yes.
I don't know about, the ordinance that created them is in the streets and sidewalks chapter, but one could infer that they have advisory capacity for all city-owned property, and that would include parks.
Thank you.
I know that they intend to, Mr. Bennett is concerned about trees and
Yeah.
has already started to working with Mr. Lee. So whether it's official or not, there should be a pretty good degree of cooperation.
Thank you, sir.
June financial statements are in your packet. Any questions or comments?
I don't think there's many surprises in the op statement. I will let you know that after the close of the June books, we got sales taxes that were up rather substantially and put us pretty close to cumulative targets. So we're supposed to be getting maybe a little bit above target. So revenue sources are doing well. I have a preliminary indication that the money we receive from the county road tax will be more than budgeted. You can always change your mind, but I have the calculation, so I know what should come from the transportation sales tax as regular share, plus the part that is in lieu of the property tax that would have otherwise owed to us. So both of those numbers are up.
Good.
And it looks like our assessed valuation is up about 2% too. I need to coordinate with Mr. Schowacker because he's a little uncertain about why certain numbers are up, and I need to do a little research before we rely on those numbers to set tax rates. Won't be as much as the other, but he certainly wants to be doubly sure about what's going to the school, so
Sure.
I won't release numbers quite yet.
Those were $1,250. Any questions?
Has the APAC guy ever come back up and looked?
You know, I forgot to ask Phil today. He was supposed to come last week and there was a scheduling problem, and he was supposed to come up and talk to Phil and review the sites. Phil didn't tell me he had met with him already, so I don't know.
He hasn't, I don't think.
Bring up the question tomorrow or something.
Other general government, transfer of property to Albert Shoe Repair.
I'll to start at this, and Mr. Borman may want to elaborate. Steve Albert would like to extend his building to the South Jersey Alley. In doing that, he has checked with various sources, including Mr. Borman, and learned that his existing building extends over the line that would be between his west wall would be technically on our parking lot. Been there for 200 years, I mean, it's facts on the ground, but he would like to address that before he puts in quarters and stuff like that, and just compounds the problem. You know, I do not see the city selling that property for development. I think it's a good parking lot, it's neat where it's at. I do not see that there is any noticeable harm in recognizing what he described to me as about 9 inches, although in talking to Dawn, it's not a constant number. The building is not perfectly perpendicular to all the property lines. What I would propose we do is have a survey done that gives a description of the property that his building encroaches onto our property, maybe add a few inches or so, just for a little bit of leeway. And then I would prepare an ordinance with that legal description to present to you next week, and you could transfer the property to him. I'm not consulted with Merit, it's extremely late enough that I haven't seen Merit since then. You may have an opinion about an out-and-out gift, or maybe just like we do with lot splits. Sometimes we recognize that the line isn't where everybody thought it was, and which is certainly the case here. We would never be able to go back and reclaim that 9 inches unless we had his building torn down. I would think that authorization for the mayor to sign a deed for $1 and other really valuable considerations or whatever would be sufficient. Nobody has the objection. I don't want to start the process and have somebody say, whoa, but it's to the benefit of the businessman. Actually, he's going to get rid of his back wall, which is kind of iffy, and add to his taxable property, and we lose nothing.
I'm okay with that.
Anything you'd like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, you gotta realize that there are some problems with some of the surveys in town. This town is a railroad town. Railroad towns are generally laid off parallel to the tracks. That's why there's a skew in the way the roads run in this town, from downtown to the surrounding parts. However, when they did that block up there and a couple of the other blocks right along Railroad Street, somebody did not get very parallel with the railroad. So the north end of the blocks are extending out into the right-of-way of the street, if you measure from the railroad. And the railroad is not exactly where it used to be, but we don't have any monuments that show us exactly where it used to be. But it hasn't moved all that much. It tends to move a little bit back and forth over time as they do repairs on the tracks and put more ballast in and stuff. But it hasn't moved substantially, but there are surveys going back into 30, 40, 50 years ago that indicate the block to the west is a foot over the line. This block is even further over the line. The next block is even further over the line into the right-of-way. If you look at the buildings, the blocks are supposed to be 240 foot wide, 260 foot wide by 500 foot long. The buildings measure bigger than that. They're about 2.5 feet longer north and south, and a half a foot or more east and west bigger than what the block is. They're also skewed, like I said, so it becomes a problem. I think that what has happened here, and I did the survey adjacent to Albert's last year, But what it looks like to me is somebody assumed that the block was right, and that these descriptions were probably based upon a skewed location for that block. The wall itself is probably in the right place for what it was surveyed. We can't prove anything, but that's probably what's happened. It's a matter of recognizing what is really there rather than what the paper says. What we'd like to do is get the paper back to saying what the surveys now show.
Interestingly enough, on the east side of Mr. Albert's building, there was an empty space between his building and what used to be a hotel, and then was several other things, and is now the building that Russ Green is fixing up. They took out a second floor connection, and if there's any sort of wiggle in where the property line is, it sort of falls into an undeveloped piece of property. Is that?
That's correct. As a matter of fact, when I did that survey, there was 2 feet of property that was left out of the deeds completely. I mean, it just wasn't either deed. They worked that out between the two of them. It was basically an empty space. Albert wasn't interested in it. The other Greens accepted it. But I mean, like I say, the lots are actually 52 foot wide up there on that street. All the other lots are 50 foot. But because you have the width of the alley in there, there was an extra, I think it's 2 feet, 50, so they became 52 feet. They wrote that description. All the others were correct, but they wrote that description as if the lot was 50 foot. And so there was 2 feet that was left out. And rather than try to research and find out whose it was, they had an agreement between the two of them, and they just exchanged some quitclaim deeds so that it resolved the problem. So there's more than one problem.
And they'll all be corrected for Mr. Albert by one deed from the city.
Yes.
I think
And really, it doesn't change anything. Everything stays the same. It just makes the paper description fit what really is there.
It gives them a little bit of assurance if he's
Yes.
extending the wall south that it's going to be on his property.
Yes.
No problem?
no
It'll
problem
be
at
on
all.
the agenda. I have one other, or, well, let's put it under the other, it's number 6. Other.
Which is the next thing I'm moving.
Yes.
The first 6 or the second 6?
We're now moving on to number 6.
Yeah, there's 2 number 6s.
No, no.
In pricing out recycling trailer, Phil noted that you really need a slightly heavier axle than some of the ones that might be available on the market. In pricing that out, he went to the best quote he had, which was Hughes, and it's $2,950. And to that, he'd like to request authorization to go another $150 to add a 4-inch drop axle, because that enables them to bring it down when it's stationary and get the forklifts on it and get rid of the bags a little easier out of it. And it's a lot of operational help for very little money. So we'd like permission to spend $3,100 on that trailer. Anything else we might, nobody was really cheaper, and all the other places said to either repair or make something available would take a lot longer than we have right now. They're making do with dump trucks this week, and even the electric or water department's short trailer, but that's just a half measure. And before 2 weeks from now, they really need to have the trailer back in operation. I think it's going to be kind of dicey whether we can even accomplish that. They told Phil 3 to 4 weeks on this one, but they might be able to get it quicker.
Okay. What weight axle are they looking
It's a 76-inch by 20-foot utility rail trailer, 5-inch channel tongue, two 5,200-pound axles with four-wheel brakes, treated floor, new tires with 6 lugs, 7K jack, whatever that is, 2 and 5/16 coupler. Well, some of the bins on there take large amounts of glass and can get kind of heavy. Plastic obviously isn't any problem at all, but when we do glass, both colored and white, then it adds weight.
Oh, I think that
Size
they
axle
probably
you
need
look at
those.
Yeah.
Possible between 10 and 11,000, real sweet.
Not an expert. Phil just determined he needed to go that high to carry the weight he's been picking up.
And what do they want the drop deck for?
It's a little bit lower, so when you're throwing items into the bins, you're not
Well,
having to lift it up as high to get the recycling in.
yeah, at least as much. You can get forklifts under the handles to the canvas bags that line the dumpsters and pick them up and get them out. That 4 inches makes a lot of difference in how the forklift can access.
It fits in the budget, okay?
It fits in the budget, although it is not specifically a forecasted budget expense.
And we talked, was that more than we talked about last?
Yeah, because we approved it.
Yeah, we were talking about 2,300.
Yeah, about double.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, wow.
I don't see why they need
We
the
approved
drop
Added,
myself.
added, $700.
2,300.
The drop adds 150.
And the extra axle is
But
different.
overall, it's about $700 more
Right.
than we
Right.
approved.
Yes.
So, I'm okay with it.
I don't know that we have a whole lot of choices.
Get out of the recycling business.
Yeah. That would upset more people than it probably.
Well, luckily Diana. Yeah.
So do we hear a motion?
I'd make a motion to go ahead and buy the heavier trailer. Certainly gonna last better.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
And that's with the $150 add-on too?
Yes.
Yeah.
All those opposed?
Yeah.
And the motion carries.
My darn, I have nothing else to mention.
So A and B of 6 are done. Exactly.
And no asthma rises from staff.
Okay.
Well, staff has some.
Yes, Mayor Rice.
Go ahead.
You go first. I was dropping brush at the brush pit the other day and visiting with one of the city employees who was cleaning up, and there's an extraordinary amount of bags and various things that don't really belong in the brush pile. I don't know, the sign that's up there that is virtually unreadable at this point, so I don't know, I think we should
I think we,
certainly re-sign it, but do we have any sort of ordinance or teach about
Dumping trash in.
dumping trash in the brush pits?
specific ordinance, I do not believe so.
Would that fall under a littering?
That would be a real stretch. I'm not sure we could get it by the municipal judge. And you gotta catch them at the act.
Is
If
it
you do
trash?
that, you just ask them to take the bag along with them. You don't necessarily want to issue.
Well, how would like construction debris, like boards and, I mean, albeit they are landscape timbers and junk like that, but
We usually tell them with landscape timbers that we'll pick them up when we make trash trucks, so they don't bring them to the brush pit.
Well, and that kind of raises another question. I think we've all seen people bringing stuff from out of town in there.
One of the benefits of having the centralized collection spot over by the tower is that it does not have to be manned.
Right, I understand.
And
Is it?
it would be very expensive, probably prohibitive to man it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't suggesting that, but I was, thought if we
Get a camera.
improved our signage again.
That can be done, certainly. And maybe find a place that doesn't get covered over by the pile of brush plates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
My
put a
fear
camera
as
out
a
there.
citizen is that if you abuse it, we're gonna lose the privilege. I use it as much as I can.
Yeah.
There was a time when we had the roll-off recycle containers over by the elementary school, and I think we tried to put a camera on. And later on, when we had the trailers at basically where the gas tanks are now at the shop, we tried to camera. But it was almost impossible to identify doing any of that stuff. And to figure out who brought in legitimate recyclables versus a bag of heavy diapers or whatever, which was what we frequently got.
Well, most of
You
what I
could
see,
never do anything about issuing tickets or even know who it was.
most of what I've seen over there is not trash per se, that, or garbage. I mean, it is just, they leave the trash bags on their
Right.
Grass.
lawn clippings and leaves. And they just throw the whole bag and everything out rather than dump it.
And then the employee has to kind of split open the bag and separate it out.
Right.
And it is extra effort. We'll talk about it. Maybe Matt has experience from his days as the solid waste management director that we can approach things alternatively. I don't know.
If people thought there was a camera there, they might be a little more reluctant. to dump
What if we
stuff.
set a trash can there that they can throw their bags in?
Well, the sign out there is almost illegible, so it doesn't say, you can't hardly read, and half the time it's covered up anyway, but you can't really read that it says no bags.
Well,
So it does need to be re-signed.
the point is, I
Although
mean,
that's a
everything
good
back
suggestion,
close.
and we haven't done it. You'd have to make it substantial enough that it wouldn't blow away or get ripped off, but still something that the street crew could dump without breaking them back.
Right.
So we can look into that.
But I mean, that's not a bad idea, because if you got something there and you put, please put the plastic bags in here, that would be another clue that you shouldn't leave them
Right.
on the clippings.
And they made it about 85, 90% of the way there. They got the bag, they got the yard waste, got everything up to that point. How much do you want to
Yeah.
jump on them for not getting the last bit? So if you make it easier for them to throw the trash.
And some of it may be ignorance too, I mean,
Yeah.
because you can't hardly read the sign.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we mentioned it in the text on our biannual newsletter, but I will make sure that it's specific. Well, I'll give you a note. You'll generally write that
Right.
in August, and we'll go out with the September bills about the first of October.
They do curbside pickup in Bolton, and people still use, and they have a drop off plate, and they have the same problem. Plastic bags, and so you can't.
You need to make a suggestion,
Right.
help people take it.
It's a side issue, but we haven't had as bad or as noticeable a problem with the Swiffer mop equivalents going through the trash pumps out of the lift station. I haven't heard of any clogs recently.
Well, but I think he's also cleaning it more regularly too.
Well, that too. We don't put it to chance.
Yeah.
We don't want to discharge, and we don't want to get called out of turning away.
All right. Yes. Oh, you didn't have an announcement? Any other, as Mayor Rice? entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Nobody wants to adjourn. I'll make a motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn, all right? And I already have my second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those